And here we go again. It is orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and the quest for a quarterback continues, Mason. It seems like we're looking everywhere, but there are places that people aren't thinking about that maybe the Broncos should be looking to.
Yes, and perhaps if you're looking for somebody with upside, it means going and taking a second look at some of the younger quarterbacks who may be redundant. Okay, now one guy we've talked about is Mac Jones of New England. I think that's probably an obvious place to search. But what about a guy who played really well down the stretch this year in a rhythm and timing based offense who is clearly unneeded, at least starting games, by his team? I'm
Right.
talking about Jake Browning. I'm talking about the Cincinnati Bengals because, of course, Joe Burrow will be back next year. Now, Browning is an exclusive rights free agent, um, according to SpotTrack.com. So you'd have to trade for him. And the Bengals probably look at Browning and how he played down the stretch and say, we'd really like to keep him because he actually looked like a top-level backup for us and kept the Bengals in the postseason race when most people thought when Burrow went down, they were done for the year.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just me saying this. It's Boomer Esiason of CBS Sports. And let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
And as we're finding out, not everybody has to be a first-round draft choice. It's great to be Patrick Mahomes, but Brock Purdy has broken the glass slipper, if you will. You can find that guy. And a guy like Jake Browning on the Bengals, for instance, came out of nowhere and had a great year replacing Joe Burrow. And, could that be a guy that the Broncos would consider? Because he would be a lesser expensive guy, and you could build a better team around him. So somebody like that could be in the offing or somebody in the draft.
I like that idea, Mace. I like it for financial purposes. There's one thing I don't like about Jake Browning, and you said it in the intro. You'd have to trade for him. Damn it, they need more picks, not fewer picks. And if I'm Cincinnati, honestly, I don't give him up. And as an ERFA, he doesn't really have any choice. He's going to play for the Bengals or he's not.
He's going to play for the Bengals and he's going to play on a minimum contract,
Yeah.
right? Or that's it, and unless they trade him. But watching him, it was hard to argue anything other than he looked like a starting caliber quarterback. Running, yes, a quarterback-friendly offense in Cincinnati with a quarterback-friendly coach in Zach Taylor. But Sean Payton could get that out of him too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And is it world-beating? No. Is a 98.4 passer rating and a 60.1 QBR, are those better than you had last year? Yes. Is he more accurate? Can he hit more areas of the field than Russell Wilson? Yes. Right? I don't think this is something the Broncos will consider, in part because, like you say, you have to trade for him. The Bengals do hold all the cards here. And, again, if you're Cincinnati is the Cincinnati is the only team in the last 5 seasons that has kept Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs out of the Super Bowl. Right?
Right.
The thought they have there is, we get Joe Burrow back, we are right back there, and we're the ones that are going to try to topple this Chiefs Colossus, and we're best positioned to do it. And what they found out last year was if something happens to Joe Burrow, you have somebody in Jake Browning who can keep the ship afloat, keep it going, keep him in contention. I have to say that it would not be the wisest thing to let them go. If you're the Bengals, why don't what's to stop you from saying, okay, hey, you want Jake Browning? 2nd round pick.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Broncos, you don't have a 2nd round pick.
Right. The Bengals hold all the cards, and in this quarterback desperate league where you need 2. And that's why we began this offseason saying the Broncos don't need 1 quarterback. They need 2. And honestly, I don't want to go Tommy Boy with the guarantee on the box, Mace, but I just want something that feels good, right? Jameis Winston feels good. Jake Browning feels good. Even to me, Sam Darnold would feel good. I do not like the idea of Jimmy Garoppolo or Mac Jones or Ryan Tannehill. Those are options that I can't really get behind. But you kind of want to feel good, plus then draft somebody that you feel good about the future whenever that future happens.
It's hard to get behind Jimmy Garoppolo because he has a long injury history. So if you bring him in, even if he does well, basically you're counting on him missing some time.
Right.
It's hard to get behind Mac Jones because there were some questions about his leadership in New England and his presence in the locker room, right?
And he's a dirty player on the field. Like, I really don't like Mac Jones for mainly him being a dirty player. One, I don't think he's a good quarterback, but he is dirty on the field.
Yeah. I'm going to make a cross-sport comparison. He gives me Grayson Allen vibes.
That's a reference I understand.
Yes. Hey, Grayson Allen intentionally trying to injure people, right? Going all the way back to when he was at Duke. So, yeah, for me, there are things like that that say I would pass on Mac Jones. I would pass on Jimmy Garoppolo. Sam Darnold is intriguing. And part of it is, and maybe this is just the way the mind works, when we in Broncos country have seen Sam Darnold, he's actually looked pretty good, right?
Right.
You go 2018, Jets maul the Broncos on the ground, but you had Sam Darnold hitting the guy who was then known as Robbie Anderson down the sideline for a score, right? 2020, a very entertaining game between two shaky teams, Broncos, Jets on Thursday night at MetLife Stadium. That's where Sam Darnold sees the Broncos conceding the middle of the field. He just takes off and runs and keeps running for a touchdown, right? And then you remember in 2022, when by then Sam Darnold's a Carolina Panther, he's replaced Baker Mayfield, and he was dicing up the Broncos defense pretty well that day.
Right.
There have been these bursts for Sam Darnold where he has looked like if he was in the right situation, he could be not a world-beating pro quarterback, but a capable pro quarterback. And if you are bringing in somebody young who may take a little more developmental time, whether it's J.J. McCarthy in round 1 or Michael Pratt on day 2, then Sam Darnold, I think, would give you a runway. And then there's a possibility that Sean Payton would look at somebody like Sam Darnold, who you're going to hear from later on this week, because I did have a chance to chat with him leading up to the Super Bowl, that look at Sam Darnold and say, well, no one got him right, but I can get him right. See, here's another thing that comes into play with a coach like Sean Payton. There's some arrogance there in terms of quarterback development.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at his career. Kerry Collins with the New York Giants was a reclamation project.
Right.
Who came in, and in his second year working with Sean Payton, the Giants were in the Super Bowl. He goes to Dallas, and they draft Tony Romo, or they don't draft Tony Romo. He's undrafted.
Undrafted, Eastern Illinois.
Over three, right. They develop him over 3 years. All the while in 2004, they bring in Drew Bledsoe, get something more out of him. And then Drew Brees, Hall of Fame quarterback, but when the Saints signed him in 2006, reclamation project. And oh, by the way,
for sure.
You know what, Sean? That was not the first plan for the Saints. You know what the first plan was? And Bill Parcells wrote about this in his book.
Right.
We know the Bill Parcells-Sean Payton relationship.
Right.
The first plan was trade for Tony Romo, not sign Drew Brees. Think about that and how history would be different if the Cowboys had acquiesced to that trade. But the Cowboys knew they were sitting on a future starter, and a very good future starter, and they didn't make that deal.
Yeah, and that was back then. That's why today, if you're the Bengals, you don't get rid of Jake Browning because you need that backup, and maybe there's something else there. And if there is something else there, then you could trade one of the quarterbacks you have. It's why you collect them all, right? It's not because I'm a collector.
Cards.
Exactly. You got the old baseball cards. Collect them all. And in this quarterback situation, I mean, you've got to find the right strategy. And go back to what Drew Brees said at the Super Bowl, Mace. You're going to see the Sean Payton offense. And so if it is Sam Darnold, you're going to see Sam Darnold running the Sean Payton offense. And for me, just as an observer of all things football, I just want to, see it work again. I know it can work. I know the sale concepts that, I'd say it ad nauseum. Like, I know that can still work. I want to see it work in Denver and then get excited about a young guy that's developing behind Jameis Winston, Sam Darnold, whoever.
Now, that being said, in New Orleans, when it worked with Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston, better collection of receivers, running backs, and tight ends than the Broncos currently have. Now, it's not to say that the Broncos can't improve, especially if Joel McLaughlin learns how to pass block and Marvin Mims Jr. can do more and work his way into being an every down receiver. So there are possibilities there. But at the same time, you do wonder, looking at the Saints with Sean Payton, how much of those quarterbacks' success when they stepped in for Drew Brees, Bridgewater for an injured Brees, Winston for a retired Brees, how much of that was due to the infrastructure around the quarterback? That's a key question that I think we have to think about. And we don't really know the answer to it just yet.
Right. And speaking of structure, there's a couple of topics that have been floating around, Mace, so we'll bring them up on today's show. One is the restructuring of Russell Wilson. I don't know about your socials, but I'm getting questions from fans like, what is this buzz about the restructuring of Russell Wilson? And my first thought goes to, well, you can trade him if you restructure him, because that contract is made, as you pointed out months and months ago. 2025 is fully guaranteed 5 days into the new league year. Nobody's trading for that. That contract is either going to get him paid or get him cut. A restructure of that deal, reworking the 2025 money, perhaps is the most important, could open up an avenue where someone like Pittsburgh or something decides to trade for Russell Wilson. Right now, everyone's waiting for that Russ thing to drop. And Sean Payton said at the Super Bowl, Mace, it's not going to be that long. Well, clock's ticking.
We're 2 days in. I mean, we saw today, the Pittsburgh Steelers are already cutting Mitchell Trubisky, right?
Right.
Things are starting to happen. We learned the Broncos were trading for Joe Flacco 5 years ago this month. We learned in the middle of February, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was walking around Key West when I heard about it.
Because it was after the combine, if our memory serves,
no, it was
right?
before. It was
before the combine, okay.
Now, they didn't announce it until after but it was unofficially official, right?
Right. There's never tampering.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's, how that works.
Right.
So, we're actually at a point here where you start being on guard for the smoke signals coming up from Centura Health Training Center that something might happen. Something might happen at any time. With my luck, it'll happen when I'm busy with something.
Right. With our luck, it'll happen when we think we might have a little bit of window of time off. But either way,
yeah,
you think
you're getting President's Day off? Sorry, something's going to go down then.
Exactly. Oh yeah. There's no holidays. But the restructure, people want to know what could they work it out? That's the best thing. Our fearless leader, James Marilat, is on everything saying like, that's what they should do and put better weapons around Russ. I'm sorry, this is broken and it's not going to be repaired. And if you were to force Russell Wilson upon Sean Payton in this next season, I don't think he'd stay. That's a bold statement, Cotton, but it's just not going to work. I know they haven't done anything yet, Mace, but I find it, 1% chance that Wilson stays. I might be even generous saying that.
At minimum, they have a lot of damage to repair.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
A lot of hurt feelings to overcome. And look, the fact is that Russell Wilson and his camp were so dismayed by what the Broncos presented him with that they went to the NFLPA. And the NFLPA ultimately was going to have the back of the player in this case. The executive director of the NFLPA said Russell Wilson was, quote, mistreated, unquote. If that's what he's saying, what does Russell Wilson think?
Right.
You have these things that say, even though it's interesting to talk about mending fences, it's not particularly likely.
Right. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, they're doing this in the prism of looking at all these quarterbacks. That's, you're not diving in all these quarterbacks if you're not thinking that's the direction in which we're going to go.
Yes.
Right. Whether you're talking about veterans or you're talking about potential draft picks.
I want to be ornery, Mace, because I'm generally ornery by nature. But part of me, next time we get to talk Sean Payton, is be like, what number do you love now? Do you know the rookies' numbers? Because it is Tuesday. They started yesterday on draft prep. So there's probably some numbers he likes.
If things go according to schedule, 2 weeks from now, we'll be hearing from Sean Payton at the Combine.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Maybe that's a question somebody asks.
Yeah.
Sean, do you know their numbers now?
It'd be fun. It'd be a fun response. We'll see what he says.
Yes. What's Drake May's number?
Quick, tell me Caleb Williams. You already know Caleb Williams. Anyway.
You're on record talking about Caleb Williams in 2022. So.
Right. You just don't forget your first love. Mace, there is also, I believe it was Troy Rank. Joey, you can double check me if I'm wrong, who had part of his article, Denver 7, of course, about like, hey, maybe Courtland Sutton would have to restructure. Again, for me, Mace, this is my personal opinion. I don't think Court is back. I think if he does restructure, because I believe the number is 17 million, then he does it so that he can be traded. It expedites a trade out of here. I don't think it's a restructure and keep Sutton. You already have to deal with the Tim Patrick thing. I think that's more likely to restructure him perhaps and keep him on kind of a prove it deal. But the Sutton thing, and I do believe it was our dear friend Troy Rank that said or had reported something like, hey, Sutton may need to redo that money.
Yeah, right now his cap number is 17.39 million headed into the 2024 season. You can get about a little less than $6 million of cap savings with a relatively simple restructure. But is this the kind of thing that you really want to do? Also, if George Payton says we love draft picks, there's only one way you're getting more draft picks, and that means you're trading some player capital, right?
Yep.
And if you're trading a receiver, which one's going to get the most on the market? Courtland Sutton, coming off of a bounce back year, at least in terms of touchdown catches, not in terms of yardage and overall production, but in terms of being a red zone threat, Courtland Sutton bounced back to where he has value. I'm not saying great value, but can you get a 4th round pick for Courtland Sutton? I'd say the odds are pretty good. And then you start kind of rebuilding that capital. The only guy that's going to get you a 2nd round pick among potentially tradable players is Justin Simmons. I mean, obviously Pat Surtain would get more, but they do not want to trade Pat Surtain. That is clear. Right.
And fans may not want to hear this, Mace, but for Sutton, and I love Court, but for Sutton, I'd take like a 4th and a 7th. If you could get 2 day 3 picks as a collector of things, a 5th and a 7th doesn't sound real great. Maybe even a 5th and next year a 4th, something like that. But 2 day 3 picks for Sutton. I know it's not great, but it's more picks. And that's what this team needs.
And you reflect on that and say, okay, if someone really did offer a 3rd round pick for Jerry Jeudy, should you have taken it last year?
Right. Right. Makes you wonder. Stings the nostrils sometimes, Mace.
Yeah. Not having that 2nd round pick hurts. Not having that extra 3rd round pick hurts.
Yep.
Wish they would have had, but they traded it to get Riley Moss last year. So here we are. Better hope Moss pays off. If Riley Moss works out, then you're fine with it. But we got to see more. They've said they see him as an NFL starter. He's going to get his chance. He's going to have his prove-it moment because I don't think you're going to see them bring in another high-level corner in free agency, and I doubt they go corner in the draft, at least early. Riley's going to get his shot.
Yeah, and then are you ready when you get that? We're going to see about that. Is there anyone, as we wrap up today's program, Mace, is there any one of these quarterbacks, because I'm emotional and opinionated, you're more level-headed, but is there one of these quarterbacks you just got to say no to? Like I say no to Mac Jones, Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy Garoppolo. My no list is pretty long. But is there one guy that's just like, oh, not even no, but just hell no?
Let me just go through the list of some of the guys here, okay?
Okay.
Kirk Cousins. He'd be nice, but
yeah.
I think you're not affording the price tag.
Right.
Baker Mayfield, same thing.
Right.
Ryan Tannehill, he wouldn't bother me the way he bothers you. It's just, what's the ceiling here, right?
Exactly. What have we not seen from Ryan Tannehill?
And he's also a quarterback who relies on his legs.
Right.
And here we are talking about somebody who's 35 years old.
Right.
So, all right. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, if you draft a quarterback round 1, I'm fine with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah. Yep.
Mitchell Trubisky, no.
Big thumbs down. Yep.
Tyrod Taylor.
Does he do what Sean Payton wants to do? And my answer is no. Like, I don't mind Tyrod Taylor, but not for Sean Payton. So I'm going to say thumbs down on Tyrod.
And I would also say the same thing on Marcus Mariota. Would he do the things that Sean Payton wants a quarterback to do?
Right.
I'd say no. Okay.
Yep.
Sam Darnold.
Thumbs up.
Intrigued.
Yes.
And there may be some untapped upside. Jameis Winston, he can run this offense.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you a thumbs down. It's not to this as the quarterback. It's because of what it would bring. I can't get on board with Drew Lock.
Okay.
Because I don't want to deal with a lock stance again. I'll admit. That is strictly... Look, I will be honest. That is strictly personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to deal with those people. Those people made my 21 season, my 2021 season hell. Don't want it.
It was worse than Tebow in a way, because Tebow stands kind of knew he couldn't play, but they'd still give you a bunch of grief. Lock stands, and listen, I think Drew is much different. As I've mentioned, I was texting with Andy, and I had to ask him if Drew would want to come back. And it's like I there's something there with Drew, but man alive, those stands were just hell to deal with.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to think about that. For the Broncos themselves, I also don't know if he's a Sean Payton type of quarterback because he's not consistent enough. There's still an inconsistency with how accurate he is and how on schedule he is. So I'd say no. Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be fun. Don't know how long it'd be fun, but
a little more consistent than Drew Lock.
Right.
That would be fun, no doubt. Teddy Bridgewater retiring. He, of course, is now coaching high school ball in Miami. Tyler Huntley.
Kind of the same thing as Tyrod Taylor. Like, I like Tyler Huntley for a different team, but not for Sean Payton.
All right. Comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco.
That is a no to the no.
Look, it did not appear to me in 2019 Joe Flacco wanted to be here. Why would that have changed?
Right.
I think Cleveland is about as far away from the East Coast as he wants to get. And it's still in the Eastern time zone, even though it's in the Midwest. So, yeah, I think that's a pass. Josh Dobbs.
No.
Meh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz.
No.
Okay. Trevor Siemian.
No. Sorry, Trev.
All right.
You can see the options aren't out there. Oh, that's a big no as well.
Yeah. Blaine Gabbert, Easton Stick, Nate Sudfeld. Yeah, now we're plumbing the depths here.
Yes, for sure.
By the way, interesting. Spot Track does a market value estimation on quarterbacks.
Okay.
Jake Browning, $5.2 million if he were on the market.
Right. He's a better option than what people would think. Yeah. I mean, what did Baker make last year? Like 3, 4, 5 million, whatever?
Yeah, he had a $1 million cap figure. I think it was $4 million total.
Holy cow.
Because here's the thing. Jarrett Stidham's average annual contract value is $5 million a year, right? Jarrett Stidham. His cap figure for this coming year is $7 million. Jarrett Stidham. I don't know.
Hey, that's a Sean Payton move, though.
I'm not a fan of that contract.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either, but that's a Sean Payton move. Listen, I give George Payton a ton of grief, and he needs to be much better, especially on day 3 of the draft. But that whole Jarrett Stidham thing, that is a Sean Payton specialty. So that's on you, Sean. Know your numbers.
Aren't they all Sean Payton moves now?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah. Unless it's day 3 of the draft, maybe.
Maybe like you get, like deep in the draft. I think you're talking about George Payton. Although making a late draft trade to get Adam Troutman last year was a Sean Payton move.
Right.
And I think that's the moment Sean walked into the door, it became his moves. He was the one on the clock. He's the one responsible, right?
Right.
Respect to George Payton, but it's Sean Payton's show.
Well, it's our show. It's Orange and Blue today. We want you to help us grow our YouTube channel. So, Mace, are you ready?
Let's do this. 3, 2, 1.
Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
I got it was informed to me yesterday by a viewer that we look like windshield wipers.
Okay. Yeah.
When we do it on opposite sides of the screen.
I always say, be careful. You get me singing Eddie Rabbit. And Joey's like, who the hell is Eddie Rabbit? Anyway, that's a wrap for today's program. Many thanks to you all for helping us out on YouTube. He's Andrew Mason. Joey is our man in the box. Really appreciate him producing our show. He's Mace. I'm Cecil. OBT is BFD. Until next time, stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?